So, you've recently been promoted into leadership, or you aspire to be a leader at some point in your career. There's just one problem. You cannot get rid of those thoughts in your mind that keep telling you you'll never be good enough, that you're a complete fraud, and that people are going to figure out that you are not the right person for the job. If that sounds true, if those are thoughts that you've been struggling with, then in this video, I am going to help you figure out how to finally deal with those imposter syndrome thoughts and what to do instead. Welcome, I'm Dr. Nina Petit de Mange, and I am a leadership coach and licensed psychologist. Let's just start with a completely vulnerable moment. I was struggling with these imposter syndrome thoughts right before I started this video. To be honest, this is probably my 5th time trying to tape this. And part of the reason is I keep having thoughts like, what do I know about imposter syndrome? I mean, who am I to tell other people what they should be doing about having thoughts about being a fraud or not good enough, or how to overcome those thoughts? I mean, I have those thoughts too. So doesn't that mean that I have no idea how to deal with it? So I just wanted to share that because it is often that really intelligent and successful women have these thoughts. And in fact, the more that we excel in our careers, the higher levels of achievement that we gain, the more often we can have these thoughts. For me to have thoughts like, who am I to tell someone with how to deal with thoughts like imposter syndrome, how to deal with anxiety, is kind of crazy because I have been working with people and helping them deal with anxiety for 16 years, but I still have those thoughts. So does that mean that I'm incompetent, the fact that I have those thoughts? Does it mean that I don't know what I'm talking about, or that I shouldn't be making this video? No, it doesn't. And it brings us to my first point, which is that when we have imposter syndrome, it is so important, it is imperative that we practice separating thoughts that are fact from thoughts that are opinions or perspectives. So here's what I mean. We often, when we have thoughts, we often just assume that those thoughts are facts. That if they're in our minds, if we have thoughts like, I don't know enough to speak up at this meeting, that it must be a fact, that it's true. What we don't do is we don't often take the time to question our thoughts or to be curious about them. Are they actually facts, or are they just the perspective we have right now? Are they our opinion of where we are at this moment? And if they are our opinion, are they true, right? So opinions are biases, inherently, they're biases. So if we're sitting in that meeting and we're thinking to ourselves, am I competent enough? Am I smart enough? Do I know enough to bring up this thought I'm having in my mind? And we take that as a fact. What we're actually taking as a fact is, no, I'm not smart enough. No, I'm not good enough. No, I don't know enough about this topic to share. So as just a quick aside, when we have questions like, am I good enough? What if I mess up? What if I don't sound articulate? What if I sound stupid? What if I'm totally off the mark? Questions like that in our minds, our brains actually read as, I'm not good enough. I will sound stupid. I don't know enough, or I'll be completely off the mark. So that is why even when we question ourselves and we think, well, I'm just questioning myself, but we're actually telling ourselves on some level that no, we are not. No, we're not good enough. No, we don't know enough. Those questions in and of themselves, those kind of anxiety-based type thoughts, those are opinions and perspectives. They're not facts. So let's separate the two. How do we know the difference? What is a fact and what's just our opinion? Well, facts are things like, this is a pen, right? So fact, we know it's a pen. It's got ink in it. It's got the little roller ball thing. It writes on paper. We know it's a pen. Or something like this. This is a really cute card that one of my kids' friends gave him for his birthday. So I'm not going to open it up and look at the little personal message that he wrote, but this is the card. It's got the flap, it's got a front and back, it's got this little really super cute design. So that's a card. These are facts. And in general, when we have facts in our minds, we don't really question those as much. They don't give us as much pause. They don't give us as much anxiety. It is our opinions and our perspectives that do. And all of those imposter syndrome thoughts, all of those questions about being good enough, the questions about our own competence, the questions about feeling like a fake or a fraud. Those are all in the category of perspectives and opinions. So it is so important to dealing with imposter syndrome to even be able to call them out as what they are, perspectives and opinions, and not facts, not something that we have to take as truths, but actually just an opinion of ourselves that's not so great, right? An opinion that doesn't feel good, but just that it's a perspective of where we think we are right now. So first step is even just acknowledging when your thoughts are facts versus opinions / perspective. Well, the second thing that you're going to do is to reconnect with your successes and accomplishments. And what I mean by that is simply to literally sit down, take some time, and make a list of the things you've accomplished in your life. So I'm going to warn you, those imposter thoughts, they are going to continue to come up. They're going to continue to say to you, well, so what that you have a degree in this, or that you have this kind of license or certification? So do a lot of other people. So I want you to keep in mind that process, that imposter syndrome process, that habit is going to continue to come up as you do this. But I want you to do it anyway. I want you to sit down and write about all of the things you have accomplished, the trainings you've gone through, the pitches that you've succeeded at, the presentations you've given. Or if you're just starting out, then think back to school. What are the times that you've stood out? Have you received any scholarships? Have you passed a class that was especially hard? Have you written a thesis or a dissertation? Whatever kinds of accomplishments, and this may expand to other areas of your life as well. When have you excelled in sports or the arts? Were you in theater or music? Or do you have another hobby or something else that you've accomplished in your life that you've made different strides in and reach different levels in it that you can put on that paper? It may help to think about it in terms of things that other people have given you praise for. Now, again, your imposter syndrome is going to be like, well, they're just saying it to be nice. But stay with me here. Go ahead and write them down anyway. And remember, those thoughts are just opinions and perspectives. They're your opinions and perspectives, and they're not serving you right now. So that is why we're sitting here today, making this video, watching this video, and listening to these things so we can figure out how to stop letting those imposter syndrome thoughts get in the way of you showing up as your competent, experienced, and talented self. So step 3, the next thing you are going to do is you are going to make a list of your traits that got you there. So this is where you're going to go back through your list of all your accomplishments and successes, and you are going to write nice things about yourself. You're going to write about your strengths. What are the traits that got you there? If you have a degree, what are the traits that helped you graduate, that helped you fulfill all of the academic and other requirements of that degree? Is it that you're a hard worker? Is it that you're diligent? Is it that you're good at setting up systems? Is it that you're highly motivated? What was it? What was it about yourself? What are the traits that helped you with those accomplishments and successes? Now, if you are really struggling with doing this step, if this feels really difficult, just go ahead, pause the video, and Google traits of successful people, traits of accomplished people, traits of smart people. And your imposter syndrome may tell you not to Google these things, but you're going to do it because I'm telling you to. And you're going to look at these lists and get some inspiration. Well, that sounds like something people tell me about myself. I don't know if I believe it, but I'm going to write it down. So go ahead and look for lists for inspiration anywhere you need to. Use Google, use books that you may have for reference, but go ahead and write those traits. And if none of that works, then you may have to tap into your personal resources, and that is your fan club, support system, friends, family, etc. And just ask them, what are the traits that you think made me successful in X, Y, or Z? And I know if you're feeling a little cringy right now as I say that, I get it, because that would totally make me feel cringy too, to reach out to my friends and be like, what are the traits that you think make me successful as a psychologist or a coach? It does feel a little cringy, but I just want to give you a lot of different ways that you could come up with this list, because this is really important. We really need to be in touch with the traits that helped us get to the places we've gotten in life if we want to be able to get past these imposter syndrome thoughts, if we want to get them out of our heads so we can actually show up as the competent people we are, right? So you can show up as the competent person you are. You need to be able to get in touch with those traits. So, okay, step 4 is my favorite. I'm not going to lie. And it is to create a pregame self-talk. And this is what I mean. If you are into sports at all, if you were a fan of sports or music or the performing arts, then you may already be kind of familiar with what a pregame self-talk is. And it is sort of the internal monologue that a performer or an athlete will give themselves before they get out on the field, get out on the court, get in front of a camera, go on stage to perform. And in that self-talk, if you can imagine, even if you've never given yourself one before, these athletes and performers are not saying things to themselves like, I'm a fraud, people are going to figure it out, I'm not that talented, I don't really know what I'm doing. They can't possibly talk to themselves that way, because if they go out there and they try to perform at whatever it is that they're out there to perform at, and that's the things that they're saying to themselves, can you just imagine what that performance would look like? I mean, if you're a football player and you say to yourself, I'm not strong, I'm not agile, I'm not quick on my feet, I don't know the plays, I don't know what I'm gonna do next, I'm not gonna catch the ball. If you can imagine someone like that going out on the field of a professional football player saying those things to themselves, they are not going to perform well at all. They're going to be full of anxiety and fumbling all over the place and missing passes and whatnot. Let's take the example of your favorite musician, right? So before getting up to perform, your favorite musician is not saying to themselves, I'm going to mess up, or what if I miss a note, or what if I trip while I'm, dancing across the stage. They can't say those things to themselves, because then for sure those things are going to start happening. If it's in their mind that it's going to happen, they're going to feel very anxious. They're going to feel a lack of self-confidence, and they are going to go out there and they are going to mess up. So instead, what do all of these people do? What is it that they say to themselves before they get out there? Well, what they do is some version of a pregame self-talk. And that is basically an internal monologue that helps to pump them up and helps them get into the right headspace, the right mindset before they get out there. Now, as a new leader or an aspiring leader, this actually is incredibly important for you as well, because before you get into the office first thing in the morning, or before you jump on a Zoom with your team, if your thoughts are those imposter syndrome thoughts, and those are the ones that you are sitting with and you are focusing on and you're allowing to create all of that anxiety into your body, then, well, I don't have to tell you, you already know how awful that feels. However, if instead you have this pregame self-talk that you can sit and rehearse in your mind, you can go over in your mind, I'm a competent leader. I know that my team trusts me. They tell me they trust me. They believe in me. They give me specific feedback all the time about how I've been able to support them and help them meet their goals. If that's the kind of thing you're saying to yourself instead of the imposter syndrome thoughts, and you get on that Zoom, or you go into that meeting, or you walk into the office, just think for a minute. How different is that going to feel? How different is it going to feel if your mind is focused on all of these actual truthful things about yourself, about your traits, your accomplishments and successes, and the evidence you have for these things? What if you start saying that to yourself every time you're about to have a talk with one of your team members, or go out for coffee or lunch, instead of all the other things? Can you imagine that that's going to start at some point making a difference? That it's going to at some point increase your self-confidence, quiet that background noise from the imposter syndrome thoughts, and start to increase your self-belief in yourself. So how do you even build that self-talk? How do you even create that pregame self-talk? It's by going back through all of the steps we just did and starting to kind of create a paragraph or two that pulls from these traits and these accomplishments and successes. Being able to say to yourself the ones that maybe resonate with you most right now, the ones that you believe the most, that feel like they wouldn't be as far-fetched, right? So you may not say to yourself, I'm the best leader ever, but you may say to yourself, I know I inspire my team because they tell me I do. Or I'm excellent at motivating others. I know how to lift them up and help them focus on what's important. So those kinds of thoughts, they may feel pretty tangible. They may feel pretty accessible to you. And those may be the ones that you start with. Make sure that they are grounded in feeling like actual facts. Make sure they're grounded in things that don't feel like you're just trying to fluff yourself up or pump yourself up, right? You don't want to try to lie to yourself or make it seem too fake or like you're exaggerating, because then it's not going to work anyway. And you may have to go back and modify it later. That's fine. Just kind of come up with a rough draft of what this self-talk might feel like, might sound like, and then we'll move on to step 5. Okay, before I move on to step 5, I actually want to pause for a quick second and ask you, are you finding this video helpful? Is this kind of content helping you figure out how you're going to take your next steps as an aspiring leader or as a new leader and help you deal with your imposter syndrome? Well, if so, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because my next 2 videos are going to help you understand how to deal with the kinds of behaviors that we engage in, the kinds of behaviors you've been engaging in because of those imposter syndrome thoughts, and also how you've been kind of building up evidence in your mind around being an imposter and what to do instead. Okay, now on to step 5. Now, step 5 takes all of the work you've done so far using this video and puts it into action. And so what you're going to do for step 5 is you are going to practice giving yourself this pregame self-talk every single day. I think it's really kind of sometimes easier to do all the prep work, but kind of harder to put into action. But the step is what's going to make all the difference. So how do you practice daily? Well, personally, I always like to think in groups of 3s. If you've ever watched any of my videos, then you probably know that. So I'm going to ask you to practice 3 times daily. Once in the morning before you start your day, once maybe like after lunch, right around that time when we all start to feel a little sleepy and unmotivated, and again once at the end of your workday. And the reason I want you to do this is because the more we practice something, the more we tell ourselves things, the more we start to believe them. Now, you already know this. You already know this because the more you've told yourself these imposter syndrome thoughts, the more your brain has conjured them up and told you them over and over again, the more you've started to believe it. You're not dismissing these thoughts, because if you were, you wouldn't be here listening to this video, right? So when thoughts like, everyone's going to figure out I'm not as smart as them, if you were really dismissing those thoughts, then you wouldn't be here having these feelings. Those thoughts kept coming up over and over again. So you started to believe them and you started to feel anxious because of them. So you are going to give yourself this pregame self-talk 3 times a day. And bonus, if you can, the best way to do this is in the mirror and out loud. And yes, I already know, I have clients tell me all the time that that makes them feel kind of ridiculous, that what if somebody hears them? And I totally get it. So do it if you can before you leave the house or before you jump on a Zoom. Go into the bathroom, turn on the lights, and give yourself that pregame self-talk out loud in the mirror. There is something different about when we do these things out loud in the mirror. It is almost like we're hearing ourselves twice. We see ourselves saying it to ourselves, and we also hear it when we're saying it out loud. It's just a very different process than when we say it to ourselves in our minds. So if you can, at least once a day, make sure that self-talk is delivered out loud to yourself in the mirror so you can hear and see yourself saying it. Now, practice 3 times a day, and there's really no end game for this. There's none. You can give yourself self-talks throughout your career, but if nothing else, at least try using this method. Try these tips that I've given you for 2 to 3 weeks. Give yourself time to try to see if it works before you believe that maybe this isn't going to make any difference. Now, if you found this helpful and you want some more tools on dealing with imposter syndrome as a new or aspiring leader, then again, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.